Hello, and welcome to the Irish Constitution Hour. The date today is April 6th, 2025. I am your host, Josh, for Canada. Joining me today is my co-host, Sarah from éıʀe, and our constitutional analyst, Mark Anthony, who will be joining us shortly. This is the 12th episode of a 12-part series of the 1937 Bunreacht na hÉireann. Today's episode involves our final remarks. We are going to reminisce on the journey that was. Quite a lot occurred in the background of which the audience was completely unawares of. It's interesting to be committed to something and see it all the way through. Interesting in that what it is that we encounter along the way really does put our commitments to the test. And in this endeavor, there was a wide range of variables put in front of us that tested our commitment. And I'm proud and happy to say that we've persevered. So today's episode is going to involve commentary from Sarah, Mark, and myself, prolonged commentaries. Sarah will begin speaking first. She's going to kind of encapsulate the facts of which we have done. Sarah's been an excellent co-host throughout this endeavor. It was her first time being a co-host. And as far as I'm concerned, as it relates to my enterprises moving forward, Sarah from éıʀe is the gold standard for co-hosting in my eyes. Okay, so this is the measuring stick I will be using from now on. When I'm accepting applications for co-hosts, if this is ever the case, this is sort of the standard of which we will be striving to repeat. So Sarah is going to provide an encapsulation of the journey that was 12 weeks. And assuming that Mark gets back here in time, we are going to then go over to Mark for his spectacular, who knows, with Mark Anthony, right? Who knows? And fitting that in our final episode, there's some mystery surrounding the mouse and how this mouse is going to get into this house and what time, I don't know. So ideally, Mark will get here. If he doesn't, then I will step in for my final remarks, and then I will tee up Mark accordingly. So there might be a little bit of a flip there. Either I will go first and then Mark, or Mark will go first and then me. All that is to say, we're going to be on track, an hour long each episode. We've remained committed to that. As you'll see with our track record, we've been on time all the time. So that is a badge of honor for us, and it's a tribute to our listeners anyways, so they can schedule accordingly. Without further delay, I am going to pass the mic off to my wonderful co-host, Sarah from éıʀe, who will begin the episode by providing her overall impressions, thoughts, facts for the last 12 weeks and on this journey of education. Sarah, take it away.
Good, Josh. God, that's very nice words there. Thank you very much. You're a great host yourself. So co-hosting mightn't be exactly my forte, but I suppose I brought my own twist to it. So I can't believe it's the final week, week 12. My goodness, the time has flown. It has been exciting and informative, even for myself. I suppose the more you read into stuff and the more you think about stuff, the more you learn yourself and the more empowered you become, you know. So it's been a great 12 weeks, and thank you so much for hosting. It has been great. And to everybody that's listened in, thank you so much. And to those people who listen to the recordings afterwards. So I suppose I'm going to try and briefly look at what we've spoken about over the last 11 weeks. So yeah, I begin, I suppose. So, the Irish Constitution, enacted in 1937, is not just a legal document. It is the embodiment of the Irish people's long-standing struggle for sovereignty and self-determination. While the British Crown's formal rule ended with the abdication of King Edward in 1936 and the enactment of the Constitution in 1937, it was in 1916 with the proclamation of the Irish Republic and later in 1919 with the Sovereign Dáils, that's the Irish Parliament, Declaration of the Irish Republic, that the sovereignty of the Irish people was truly asserted. These foundational moments in Irish history laid the groundwork for the Constitution, which formally recognised the inalienable rights of the Irish nation to govern itself, independent of foreign rule. It's through these declarations and the language of the Irish Constitution that we see a continuity of sovereign ideals, symbolised and safeguarded in the very fabric of the Irish Constitution. In essence, the Irish Constitution not only outlines how the government operates, but also embodies the nation's identity, cultural heritage, and vision for the future, serving as a guide for political and social development. It is a living document that helps to balance tradition with progress, ensuring the principles of sovereignty, national unity, and respect for rights are maintained as era evolves. So today, I'll briefly recap on the key articles of the Irish Constitution, which we've discussed over the last 11 weeks, each article reflecting a commitment to the sovereignty of the Irish people, the protection of personal freedoms, and the deep cultural heritage that forms the foundation of the Irish nation. From the recognition of Irish as the official language to the preservation of fundamental rights. These articles reveal the complex journey of a nation that declared its independence and continues to reaffirm it. The preamble stipulates that it was we, the people of Éire, who gave to ourselves the Irish Constitution, Bunrat Nahéireann. The preamble sets the tone for the principles and ideals of the Constitution, acknowledging Éire as a Christian nation, highlighting the deep connection to our divine Lord Jesus Christ, who is all authority, acknowledging the struggles of our forefathers to gain the rightful independence of our nation, affirming the dignity and freedom of the individual, whilst recognising the advancement of the public good and affirming our commitment to creating harmony with other nations. So from the preamble then, we moved on to the nation, Articles 1, 2 and 3. Article 1 affirms the Irish nation as having the inherent, unquestionable right to make decisions about its governance, about how to interact with other countries, and how to shape its own society based on its unique identity and traditions without interference from outside forces. Article 2 emphasises the national territory, and that's the whole island, its islands and territorial seas, recognising that the Irish people are not confined to man-made boundaries, such as that of the supposed boundary between Ulster and the rest of the island, thus preserving the national identity of the 32-county island. And Article 3 lays the groundwork for eventual reunification. Remember, the Anglo-Irish Treaty came to an end in 2022, and discussions around reunification should have long since commenced. Instead, in 2023, a new treaty for our island, the Windsor Framework, was agreed upon between the EU and the UK, receiving royal assent from the King of England. This is very significant as it marks the continued division of our island and highlights the urgency for Éire to reaffirm its sovereignty and work towards the reunification of its true national territory. As Patrick Pearse passionately declared, Ireland unfree shall never be at peace, a sentiment that captures the undying resolve of the Irish people for true independence. In the same vein, Sean McDermott stated, "We are not fighting for the sake of fighting. We are fighting for the freedom of the Irish nation, and that includes the reunification of the Irish people." So then we moved on to the state. Article 4 and 5 summarises the name and core identity of the state. ERA as the official name of the state, and ERA's sovereignty in managing its affairs without external control and independence from being subject to the rule of any other nation. Also, it is affirmed that the people are the source of governmental authority via democratic principles. Article 6 affirms that God is the ultimate authority and that the people derive their authority from God. It is from the people that the government gains its authority, underscoring the sovereignty of the people and their central role in governance. As Eamon de Valera asserted, the people, and not the government, are the true sovereigns of the land. In the same spirit, James Connolly proclaimed, "We believe that the Irish nation have the right to self-determination, and that right comes from the people, not from any external force." Article 7 establishes the national flag of ERA as the tricolour of green, white and orange, a symbol of Irish sovereignty and independence on the international stage, and of the coming together of the two communities here in ERA, Catholics and Protestants, despite their historical differences. Although the Irish tricolour was raised during various Irish rebellions and widely adopted after the 1916 Rising, it was in 1937 that the Irish tricolour was formally adopted as the national flag. Article 8 establishes the Irish language as the first official language of the state, encouraging the preservation of the national language. A country's own language is a vital part of its cultural heritage and identity. Not only does it carry the history, traditions, and values of the people, it also plays an important role in expressing and maintaining the nation's sovereignty and independence. The Irish language, being the first official language, allows the nation to maintain autonomy over its legal framework and governance, distinct from external forces. And just to remind ourselves that Article 25.4.5 states bills passed are to be brought out in both languages. And Article 63 states if there's conflict between the two texts, the Irish text takes supremacy over the English text. So that's the Irish language text being superior. As Patrick Pearse once said, the Irish language is the soul of the nation. And Douglas Hyde described the Irish language as the light that illuminates the soul of the Irish nation. We then moved on to fundamental rights, Articles 40 to 44, incorporating Article 38.1, which guarantees the protection of individual rights through legal proceedings, and emphasises that no one can be deprived of their liberty except in accordance with law. Article 40 embodies personal freedom and the right to habeas corpus, ensuring that no one can be detained without just cause or trial. Man is born free, and everywhere he is in chains, as Thomas Paine famously stated. This speaks to the fundamental truth that all individuals are inherently free, yet throughout history, various forces have sought to limit that freedom. The metaphorical chains Paine describes speaks of the forces that might seek to restrict or infringe upon the individual's natural rights. Article 40 is a reflection of the Irish people's commitment to preserving the inalienable rights that everyone is born with, and a powerful affirmation that freedom cannot be taken away without due process. Article 41, 42, 43 and 44 of the Irish Constitution outlines key aspects of family, education, property and religion, all of which are tied to the concept of natural inherent rights. Article 41 recognises the family as a fundamental unit of society, affirming its natural right to protection by the state. Article 42 guarantees the right of parents to provide for their children's education, emphasising the natural right to direct one's own family and future. Article 43 safeguards private property, ensuring individual natural right to own and control their possessions. Finally, Article 44 upholds the freedom of religion and faith, acknowledging that all people have a natural right to practice their faith without interference. Together, these articles reaffirm the Irish state's recognition and protection of the inalienable rights that arise from the dignity and autonomy of the individual and the family. Eamon de Valera once stated, "The Irish nation values the family as the essential and most fundamental unit of society. It is in the family that the nation's future is shaped and its traditions are passed on." And Patrick Pearse in his writings often emphasised the importance of the family, stating, "A nation that does not value a nation that does not value its family values has no future." Eamon de Valera stated regarding education that education is the key to the future of the nation, and the right to educate is a fundamental liberty. James Connolly emphasises the importance of private property as part of freedom and self-determination, stating, "The land and the means of production must belong to the people, and it is only when this is realised that we can truly be free." And Padraig Pearse reflected on the connection between religion and national identity, stating, "We are a people with God-given rights to practice our religion freely, and in doing so, we preserve the spirit of our nation." So each of these quotes emphasises the values found in the Irish Constitution: freedom of education, property and religion, whilst also touching on the natural rights that protect them. We then looked at Article 24 and 28. In 1937, the Irish people voted for a constitution that was meant to protect the sovereignty of the nation, define the relationship between the government and the people, and secure the fundamental rights of the people. However, with the outbreak of World War II in 1939, this led to an emergency meeting of the political leaders, and as a result, a critical change was made to Article 28.3.3 of the Constitution. Article 28.3.3 in its original form dealt with a state of emergency within the Irish island. It allowed the government to act swiftly in the event of a national emergency, like a war on the island itself. However, in 1939, during World War II, an amendment was added to this article, expanding the scope to include a state of emergency if a war occurred outside the island that affected the nationals' vital interests. This broadening of emergency powers gave the government the legal right to declare an emergency situation, even if the conflict was beyond Ireland's borders, something never translated into the Irish language, raising concerns about its legality and application. So that's referring to the First Amendment, where they added an artificially extended meaning of time of war. This was never translated into the Irish language. Over the years, the government has utilised emergency powers under this provision to push through laws quickly bypassing regular procedures or and broader scrutiny. These powers have enabled the government to implement various measures under Article 24, which grants the government the ability to expedite legislation during times of emergency. And this has led, I suppose, to essentially what we'd nearly think a suspension of the Constitution, as the government are operating more like an emergency regime. Under these conditions, decisions are made swiftly, often without adequate public input or the full application of constitutional checks and balances. This pattern of declaring and using emergency powers has and can lead to an erosion of sovereignty, the very foundation that the Irish Constitution was built upon, sovereignty and independence. By operating under emergency conditions, really often declared with little transparency, the normal governance structures may be bypassed and have been bypassed, and the rights and freedoms of the people undermined. The sovereign will of the people, as expressed through democratic process and constitutional safeguards, has been sidelined in the name of emergency measures. So this situation brings up a significant question about the relationship between emergency powers and sovereignty. While emergency powers are certainly necessary in times of crisis, their continuous use without clear necessity and the potential to undermine the sovereign nation established by the Constitution raises concerns about democratic accountability and the protection of rights. It's crucial to ensure that the Irish Constitution, which was designed to reflect the inalienable rights and sovereignty of the Irish people, is not overshadowed by legal mechanisms that could silence the voice of the people under the guise of emergency powers. If the government continued to operate primarily under emergency powers, it risks disregarding the very principles that were fought for and are enshrined in the Constitution: an independent, sovereign nation free from external control, and a government that serves the people, an independent, sovereign nation free from external control, and a government that serves the people with full respect for their constitutional rights. As stated by Benjamin Franklin, those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. Thank you, Josh. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Wonderfully spoken. Ladies and gentlemen, we have our constitutional analysts amongst us. And without further ado, I would like to introduce Mark Anthony for his closing remarks on this here constitutional journey of which we've embarked upon. Mark, I hand the baton over to you, good sir.
Thank you very much, Josh. Sarah Jane, that was very well put. First of all, I want to apologize for being late. I was attending something else very important. And secondly, I want to thank everybody who has tuned in thus far during the past 12 weeks. 12 weeks, I would like to think that people have maybe, learned something from this or whatever, but we have in our midst a constitution, and it's so important. There's countries out around the world or across the world that would love to have a national written constitution enrolled in their Supreme Court as conclusive evidence. It protects everything, as Sarah Jane was saying there. It protects the fundamental principles of society. It protects the family. It protects religious rights. It protects private property. It protects your personal rights. And all it takes is for people to lift up the book and start reading it and start trying to have an understanding of it. And people will always say, sure, they're railroading over the Constitution. And they're doing this, that, and other till it, sure, the Constitution's not worth this. No, that's incorrect. We had a referendum there, and that referendum last year on the 8th of March invigorated a lot of people, so much so that a lot of them all thought that they would run for office. But it wasn't about politics. It was about the family. So those unlikely candidates found out the hard road, that the Constitution is everybody's. Doesn't matter what creed or whatever you are, you know what I mean? If you're here, you're Irish, and you follow the traditions and the cultures of this country, and this Constitution can benefit you all. It can also be used against us, as we've been seeing with the government of Ireland since 2020, an initiation of the emergency powers until severe status, which would then transfer all powers onto the government of Ireland, the 15 ministers, and basically they become dictators. Well, they can do whatever they want, because when they initiated that legislation first on the 3rd of September, 1939, when they initiated that legislation in the first place, they left themselves immune from suit, from prosecution. But the Constitution states in Article 15.10 or else 15.13, it's one of those two, that except in cases of treason. Well, treason's Article 39. Except in cases of treason, basically the government is immune from everything. They can't be prosecuted, except in cases of treason. What amounts to treason? Well, that's levying war against the state, be it domestic or foreign or domestic. Article 39, treason shall consist only in levying war against the state, or assisting any state or any person, or inciting or conspiring with any person to levy war against the state, or attempting by force of arms or other violent means to overthrow the organs of the government established by this Constitution, or taking part or being concerned in, or inciting or conspiring with any person to make or take part or be concerned in any such attempt. I want to get that article as a 15 point, just to clarify it there for you. So 15.10. No, it's 15.13, people then. Yeah. The members of each house of the Oireachtas shall, except in cases of treason as defined in this Constitution, felony or breach of the peace, be privileged from arrest in going into or returning from or within the precinct of either house, and shall not in any respect of any utterance in any house be amenable to any court or any authority other than the house itself. So under the emergency legislation, they've basically left themselves with powers that is very dangerous in the wrong hands. And the amended, as I say, I've read this before, but I'll read it again. On the 2nd of September 1939, he stated, "I do not think it is I do not think it is within the wit of man to divine a phrase which will prevent, in certain circumstances, an unscrupulous majority from betraying its democratic obligations and overturning democracy, even if it considers itself strong enough to do so. I think there is no use in trying to provide against all possible things of this sort or of that sort. A democracy, any representative government, in order to be successful, has to be running according to rules and has to have popular opinion behind it. It would be and be supported in that way. If at any time an occasion should arise when a majority could so flout the ideals of representative government, it would be done otherwise, and there would be an end to this system of government. I think, therefore, we would give ourselves fruitless trouble trying to devise a phrase which would narrow this down, this definition. Well, the government that's in at the minute is not elected by popular opinion because it was the lowest turnout of an election since 1923. They are a coalition and they're breaking, as we see, they're breaking so many rules. They've got independents in, which are part of the government, and saying that they are part of the opposition. It's doomed to failure. So we're being run on this island by people who are incapable of doing the job. They're probably very capable of doing the job, but they're incapable of doing it correctly. The Constitution, hang on here now to get this. The Constitution of 1937 represents a fresh start in respect of the fundamental principles that are to be a guide of this country for the future. I do not think a further constitution, an unwritten one, was intended by the people of éiûe to exist side by side with this written constitution, or even perhaps it would be more correct to say outside and beyond the present constitution. Therefore, the question is whether it is the destiny of the Constitution to be more than a piece of paper depends not only on the nobility of its contents, but the watchfulness of the people. This is a people's constitution enacted by the people on the adopted by the people on the 1st of July, 1937. The people hold the power. It's explicitly stated in the Irish text in Article 6.1. It is from the people, and it has to be for the welfare of the people. And it is up to and rests with the people to settle all questions of national policy. So the EU Migration Pact, Helen McEntee on the 25th day of June 2024 went into the Dáil and extended the Emergency Powers Act by 1 year with the option to extend it. And in doing so, the very next day, under emergency circumstances, went back into the Dáil and pushed through the EU Migration Pact with other durable relationships, which is mentioned 45,000 times at least in EU legislation. And the government couldn't define it on the referendum on the 8th of March. And the people struck it down constitutionally. So Helen McEntee used the emergency powers to push through the EU Migration Pact, and she has put a clause in it that it will cost the people €620 million per annum, or if they do not take in their quota of asylum seekers and international protection applicants. And they base it on the GDP, the gross domestic product, and our gross domestic product is what would you call falsely inflated by multinational corporations not off this land, pharmaceutical corporations, and we're seeing that all playing out now with Donald Trump. If they pulled the pin here, if 100 of those pulled the pin here, it would almost instantly collapse the Irish markets. It would also nearly instantly put you into recession, a hard recession. Think 2008 on steroids of what the possibilities here and the implications of what lies ahead here. What Donald Trump has done has rattled the institutions across the world. 20% tariff on say just Kerrygold butter. Well, sure, I think it's up to over $10 for a wee cube of butter. I think that's what it's went up to, $11 or something, $12. So I want to say a wee poem here. And this is coming out of a book that was written in 1939. Parts of it's written in Clo Gaelach and other parts is in English. And it's called My Countrymen, Awake, Arise. My countrymen, awake, arise. Our work begins anew. Your mingled voices rend the skies. Your hearts are firm and true. You've bravely marched and nobly met our little green isle through. But oh, my friends, there's something yet for Irish men to do. As long as Erin hears the clink of the base ignoble chains, as long as one detested link of foreign rule remains, as long as of our rightful debt one smallest fraction's due, so long, my friends, there's something yet for Irish men to do. Too long we've borne the servile yoke, too long the slavish chain, too long the feeble accent spoke, and ever spoken vain. Our wealth has filled the spoiler's net, and gored the Saxon's crew. But oh, my friends, we'll teach them yet what Irish men can do. There's not a man of all our land our country now can spare. The strong man with his sinew hand, the weak man with his prayer. No whining tone of mere regret, but let your songs teach Ireland's yet what Irish men can do. Dennis Florence McCarthy. So, again, people, I just want to thank everybody. We have a constitution. It's alive. It's well. It protects the Irish language. It protects the Irish text. It protects Irish culture. It protects Irish heritage. It protects the Irish nation first and foremost. It is a Christian constitution where all our obligations are to our divine Lord Jesus Christ, who sustained our fathers through centuries of trial. It's ours to lose. It's nobody's to take. But sitting by idly, I think we will lose it, in some form or another. Because I don't know why it's through complacency or apathy or people just sick of politics and things like that. But the Constitution is a machine. It's a machine with many cogs. And without each cog turning consistently, it will clog up like an engine of a car. And it will become insufficient through time. I think we have one last chance at saving the Constitution. But it takes a people. As a document undoubtedly comes from a generation of 1937, as it derives its force and effect from the present generation of citizens, and hence it should be legally interpreted in the light of current conditions, and with the view of meeting current problems, now and in the future. Judges who accept their responsibilities under the Constitution to judge give to the people the opportunity to measure the community's conduct along the yardstick of constitutional liberty. Under a written constitution which confers the powers of judicial review, a judiciary's activities become enmeshed in the history of a country, but the crucial role of the judiciary does not make it omnipotent. As was pointed out by one distinguished American writer, no court can preserve a liberty in a country whose people are bent in losing it. In the last analysis, it is the people themselves who must be the guardians. But a responsible judiciary can make it difficult for the people to throw away their liberty. The learned authors of this work convey to the reader a sense of importance, the seriousness, and the excitement of constitutional law. That's all I have to say. If you have anything there you want to add in there, folks.
Thank you, Mark. The Irish Constitution was a 12-week educational treatise of the 1937 Bunreacht na hÉireann. Each week, we discussed how the Irish Constitution interprets liberty, freedom, natural law. Mark Anthony, Sarah Jane, and myself had no prior relations leading up to this here project. We decided to collaborate based on a mutual understanding that Mark Anthony's knowledge of the Irish Constitution had a context of its own. I first heard Mark speak on YouTube. I was doing a series of shows on éıʀe, and I was on YouTube and I came across Mark Anthony on a show. And he was discussing the 1937 Irish Constitution. And he was speaking with this guy, and it's fascinating. You can find it on YouTube. Speaking with this guy, and Mark has all of these books and papers at the ready. And as he's speaking with this man who's interviewing him, before he answers questions, he'll grab a piece of paper or a book, and it's very delicate, right? It's very delicate. And Mark will kind of provide some backstory behind this delicate piece of paper, whether it was a pamphlet or a rough draft or a book. He'll provide some education on where this artifact came from. And it's riveting. It's riveting. And this is proper citation. as well. So it was clear that there was a line of thinking here that was something I hadn't experienced since I had discussions with people from ERA on certain subjects. So I thought this is an interesting man, and I got a lot from it. So the following day, I go on to X, and I hear his same voice on X. I said, that's the guy from YouTube. So I reached out to him, and I said, hey man, like, I got to get you on my show. I'm having discussions about ERA right now, and this is something we haven't covered, this 1937 Constitution. He got back to me, and we arranged a date. And coincidentally enough, our first discussion took place on the day that the 1937 Constitution was ratified. So we took note of that. This show was called Liberal Discourses, and the Liberal Discourses is a show for liberal thinkers. It's like free thinkers, right? And in December of last year, I started having conversations with people from ERA. And I was just wondering what was going on in Ireland. As many of you may know, I have Irish roots. So I hadn't checked back in a long time. So I recorded about 3, 4, maybe 5 episodes focused exclusively on Ireland. And I had discussions with elected politicians, discussions with intellectuals, and many people from all walks of life had messaged me saying that what is happening in Ireland is peculiar, it's niche, it's the same, but it's different. And my sentiments were similar. It's the same, but different. But 2 events struck me that changed my perspective. Shane James, Mount Melleray, Mark Anthony, 1937, on Bunrock. I want to begin by discussing what it is that I learned from this man named Shane James. Shane James, what I learned from Shane James is that antiquity represented in the modern day, whether it be tradition or something concrete like a building, like Mount Melleray, antiquity is supported by the community. The strength of the community holds these institutions, these traditions, these structures in place, passing the torch from one generation to another. It's the community. And sometimes, maybe oftentimes, maybe it's a law that the community manifests itself in one man. How can we feel so lost, yet at the same time know how to be found? In Shane James, we know a giant, like Atlas. With the globe on his back, there was Shane James with this ancient Christian hermitage on his back. And the question which remains, how long can he support it? So Shane revealed to me the nature of myth. In Mark, we found the nature of law. Not too dissimilar to Shane James supporting Mount Melleray on his back, we found in the northern part of ERA, Mark Anthony supporting the constitution of the entire nation on his. Mark Anthony, a giant who goes by the name of Mouse. A curious paradox, this Mouse. Who let him in? How does a mouse find a way in the house? A mouse finds its way. They are small and flexible. They're able to squeeze into tiny gaps oftentimes as small as a dime. They're naturally curious. They will investigate a perimeter looking for weak spots. They have a strong sense of smell that will help them detect food from inside a house. If they cannot find an established path, they will use their strong teeth to gnaw at wood or plastic or soft mortar to forge a way in. Shane James, a giant. Mark Anthony, a mouse. The nature of myth, the nature of law. Paucity. Paucity unites these two men. Love for their land condemns them to follow the hero's journey. Undoubtedly, being men of absolute conviction, they will have visited the netherworlds. Gods and mortals have been known to visit the netherworld and find their way back again. But in that kingdom, they know he who tastes even once of its fruits belongs to them. Are God and nature, passion and spirit, Shane and Mark, one and the same? Or are they apart? Is the spirit in nature or the nature in spirit? The law of God or the law of nature? These warriors, these Celtic tigers, as it were, of which the Canadian people, the people of the world, have had the privilege of meeting, are, in my estimation, less Homo sapien, more Homo Dei. Homo Dei, which in Latin means men of God. They're in a different category than the civilian or the bourgeois. They have rejected the civilian bourgeois' acceptance of life, a pagan joy of life. They have rejected this. And it's those pagans of progress of whom have waged war untowards these two men. And from the pagans' point of view, these soldiers must be destroyed. They must be destroyed for the sake of progress, for the good of humanity, for freedom, for a cult, the cult of the ego. Some may say that freedom has outlived its usefulness, that youth today prefer obedience over freedom. Some may say that liberation and individual development are not the keys of our age. They are not what we need right now. Some may say that what our age needs, what it wrestles after, and what it will ultimately create is terror. And what is more terrifying than Shane James with an axe or Mark Anthony with a constitution? The necessity of terror, the dualism between good and evil, will ultimately be abrogated to make way for a single principle, an absolute principle, a principle rooted in God. Some may espouse these views. Me, well, what I see is dignified death. Shane James, Mark Anthony are the purest, most iconic representations of an unyielding Irish spirit. They are the epitome of Éireann Go Bragh, Ireland forever. Thus concludes the Irish Constitution Hour. I hope you enjoy this program. We will afford Sarah Jane about 30 seconds or so to inform us all where we can pick up on this journey as it continues to unfold. With that, I'll hand it over to Sarah. And if, Mark, you have any closing thoughts, I'll pass it to you and we will end the space. Go ahead, Sarah.
Maybe I'll let Mark inform you of where to pick up from here. I just want to read out something very quickly. All right. The soul of éireagh. I am éireagh, ancient and free, bound not by chains of tyranny. Though outsiders came with sword and seal, they could not break what I conceal. My rivers speak in native tongue. My hills remember songs once sung. My people rise, though scattered wide. With truth and fire they will not hide. No foreign hand shall write my name, nor smother me beneath their claim. For in the hearts of those who care, my soul awakens everywhere. From terrace stone to ocean shore, the call resounds, no less, no more. A nation whole, both proud and wise, with freedom burning in her eyes. Thank you very much, Joss, for hosting and for giving éireagh a voice. And thank you very much, Mark, for being a great mentor and always being available for anything I wish to discuss. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you very much, everybody.
And with that, if Mark, you have a final comment here,
Yeah,
I'll hand it to you and we'll close out the space.
I'll just finish off here. I just want to thank you, George, for that there. That was very nice and it was humbling. Just come to tough time with personal life, with death, and I just want to thank everybody for tuning in. And we've created a website, and it's www.bunrock1937.ie. And all the 12 episodes will be in the imminent issues part of it. It's an educational tool. You can download the Constitution from it. You can download the literal translation. Everything is backed up by facts. It's not our opinion, it's facts. We tried to leave our opinion at the door while creating it. It was myself and a woman called Geraldine. We sat for many, many days, many, many hours creating this just for the love of a nation. We get nothing out of it. Only the feeling that we've done our bit. I have to go and be with my family. My family. Just thank you, folks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a rocky road to Dublin. Indeed it is. God bless you all. Thank you for turning in. Signing off.